Indiana versus Notre Dame is a real doozy of a matchup, as you have Canadians playing American football, which is spicy, I know, and you have Indiana in the playoffs. That's just crazy in and of itself. With that said, we're going to start off with Indiana, who has a big advantage at quarterback, in my opinion, with Curtis Wark, who is the aforementioned Canadian, by the way. He is a star quarterback. He is, I would say, one of the 10 or so best college quarterbacks in all of football. So he is a great advantage to Indiana in basically every matchup. And this is no exception because Riley Leonard is very good. He's a quality quarterback, but he's not quite up to par with Work. And I think that's going to be interesting to see how it unravels because Curtis has perhaps the greater skill, but Leonard is probably going to have the better supporting cast. We'll find out throughout this video. Next for Indiana, though, is that Curtis does have somebody to throw to, as he has a stud wide receiver in Elijah Surratt. He is very good, as you could tell by me calling him a stud. He is superior to the good cornerback Christian Gray, as Gray is not in that advanced level of cornerback play where you can feel safe in him erasing a receiver or a side of the field. I wouldn't say you feel great about that in either regard, but he's going to match up favorably with a lot of the wide receivers. It's just Surratt is not one of those. An additional thing Indiana might have going for them is that they have a solid wide receiver in Miles Cross versus a question mark in Carson Hobbs. Hobbs is a almost entirely unknown. He didn't play basically at all this year, and he is a freshman. So he is going to be somebody that could really help Notre Dame if he plays well, or be a major target if he's not so hot. And he's going to be somebody they pick on early at least, and until he can show that he's not easy to pick on, because there's no easy targets with this Notre Dame defense. It is very strong at all three levels, and there's nobody that you can really point to and say, we're going after him. Hobbs is the closest thing to that, so they're going to go after him more than likely in Indiana's case, and we'll see how Hobbs does. Next, we're going to shift to the defensive side for Indiana as we get to Notre Dame's sort of middling pass blocking versus an elite pass rush of Indiana. I feel really good about Indiana's pass rush. They have a mix of star talent and depth, so that's nice to see. They have talent on the inside and on the edge, so it's good, it's well distributed, and that's going to be something that is a bit scary for Notre Dame because they don't have a strength in pass protection, which is very rare for them. They have one of the best offensive line factories in all of college football. I would say it's probably the best because you go through and you can find starter after starter in the NFL that come from Notre Dame. The next advantage for Indiana is that they have a star cornerback in D'Angelo Pons, and he is going to be superior to the bad wide receiver that is Bo Collins. Bo is a low end wide receiver. He's not really somebody defenses are kept up at night with trying to stop. And Pons is able of covering just about anybody. There's no matchup that I would say he's inherently at a disadvantage for. The only exception being him versus a, say, 6'5" receiver, as he's only 5'9". So that's really a testament to just how good he is. The next thing I like for Indiana is that they have a gem edge rusher in Mikhail Kamara. I don't know if it's Kamara or Kamara, but he is a total gem, total stud, and he's going against a poor offensive tackle in Anthony Knapp. So that is, again, a matchup you want to keep an eye on. Kamara is totally capable of blowing up an offense by himself, and Knapp is probably going to be contributing to that as well. The final advantage for Indiana is that they have a great defensive tackle in CJ West, and he's going against a good interior offensive line. So it's not as big of a discrepancy as there is on the edge, but there's still an advantage for Indiana. So this is going to be something that could get into Riley Leonard's pocket, but he does have the mobility to get around it. So it's not going to be a total disaster if West does have some success against this solid interior offensive line. As we shift to Notre Dame now, if you're enjoying this video, make sure you like and subscribe because I'll be pushing out college football content throughout the rest of the season. With that out of the way, Notre Dame has some clear advantages as well. One of which being that they have a stud running back in Jeremiah Love, and he is going to be somebody that they can use in the receiving game against the poor covering Aiden Fisher. If Fisher is one-on-one with Love, that's going to be problematic for Indiana, as Love is so shifty and he's pretty nuanced in his route running as well. So you add those two together, and that can be really problematic for a defense, especially in the case of with Fisher, who is just not very advanced in his coverage skills. The next advantage for Notre Dame is that this is kind of a question mark again, because the player himself is a question mark. But if Hobbs plays well, there's no weak links on the defense, so there is no one to go after. That is a major, major key for defense. That's how you get an elite defense, is to have no weak links. And that could very well be the case with Notre Dame, as Hobbs is a talented player. If you're at Notre Dame, you're more than likely a talented player just based on that fact alone. But Hobbs is somebody with potential, and it's just going to be if he's ready to execute right away or not. The next advantage for Notre Dame is a little bit philosophical, but is a major advantage, is that they have had a much harder schedule. Indiana has the 42nd hardest schedule compared to Notre Dame's 21st hardest schedule. The ratings for these, I do not understand very well, I will admit, but they are an 8.5 for Notre Dame and a 5.8 for Indiana. So there's a 32% difference between the strength of schedules of these teams. Notre Dame has been challenged a lot more. Indiana has only seen a team of Notre Dame's caliber once in Ohio State, and that's it. Notre Dame has played teams of Indiana's caliber throughout the year. The final advantage for Notre Dame is that they have home field advantage, which is something I think is larger in college than it is the pros. So that is a pretty nice advantage to have. With all of this said, you may be wondering who I'm leaning towards. I'm going with Indiana. I realize that Indiana is a 7-point underdog, and I can totally understand why. I think there's very good reason to be skeptical over Indiana, as Notre Dame is a much more known commodity. But Indiana has so much potential, and I just feel like there's less question marks with Indiana. Carson Hobbs is somebody that really worries me because if he does not do well against Cross or Surratt, that's really going to break open the game, as this Indiana offense is really potent. So I'm going with Indiana here. I think this is going to be a great game, regardless of who wins. I would not be surprised at all if Notre Dame wins, but I would recommend sprinkling a little bit of something if you're going to bet on this game on Indiana, just because I can see them winning straight up. Those are my thoughts. Be sure to let me know what yours are in the comment section, and also be sure to like and subscribe for more football content.